goals, you go back to New Year's resolutions, right? It depends on what you read, but it's somewhere between 2% and 10% actually get done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's closer to the 2 than it is the 10, honestly. In strategic planning and execution, less than 10% of organizations get 2/3 of their strategic objectives done.
And what kills me, and that I had to learn because it really is coming from a non-judgmental place, it has nothing to do with how bad they want it.
No, this is not a desire thing. This is
Right.
nothing to do with desire. There's nothing to do with hopes and dreams and aspirations. This has to do with designing things wrong.
Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. All right. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast, where my guest and I today, Carl Cox, finally, we hit the record button because we could just keep talking. That seems to be a theme. But I'm excited because so much of what we talk about is in alignment. And I don't even remember how we meet. Usually I talk about that. But before I give you a chance to introduce yourself, I think the thing I'm most excited about that we have in alignment is figure it out, do the thing, make it happen. Figure it out, do the thing, make it happen. Stretch, grow. What do I have to do to make it happen? But with excitement and ambition, with all of the positive and not coming from scarcity and not coming from fear, but this is fun. Do people not understand that, right? That for those of us who are a little weird, this is fun. So before we get into all the amazing things you have going on, why don't you give everybody a little more formal introduction into who you are and what you do?
Erin, thank you so much. Awesome to be on your podcast today. And my name is Carl J. Cox. I am the CEO of 40strategy.com. And so that's our core business. We provide strategic planning and consulting to help make sure that organizations design a world-class strategic plan, but more importantly, we help keep them accountable to actually get it done. So that's our core business. Now an author. So author of Lost Its CEO, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Strategy. It's a fun book, and we'll talk more about that later. And then we have in August, the challenge you have, right, in growing. So we've been growing, and it's how do I scale myself and help make sure more people get information? So we have created the Captain Strategy Program, which enables people to learn our principles so they can actually get their own strategic plan and get it done. So that's what we do. And we'll go from there. Let's conversation from that point.
All right. Where do we start? Okay. My first question that has nothing to do with anything. I'm catching the theme. I don't know why I missed it before. Lost Its CEO. By the way, fantastic title. I'm a big fan of a really good title. So catching on to the at sea theme, I see it on your website. Is there a reason for it, or is it just a really cool? I mean, it's such a very good visual. I'm a very big fan of. Give me a visual that's not business related so I can understand. Where did it come from?
No, I appreciate you. So there's that pun, right? Lost Its CEO and Lost Its Sea, right? And so it's right there. And yeah, I've had these themes. The original book, this is a 2.5-year process, was called The 7 Cells of Success. And so that was the traditional. Yes. Yeah. So it wasn't as much, right? And so that was all the books behind me. And so we completely redesigned and changed it to be a real story of the entrepreneurs that I face and work with consistently. But if you look, those who are watching, they'll see there's a big tower that's the best in France, a lighthouse with seas crashing on it. My dad was in the Merchant Marines for his career. My mom, for a while, was a tugboat on a boat. My son is currently, one of my sons is in the U.S. Naval Academy.
Nice.
So ocean and sea has been around my life the whole time. Now, don't confuse. Do not ask me to get on a boat because I get sick. I was the generation between. Oh, it's ridiculous. So I can be on a boat, but I can't don't ask me to go out fishing. Here I live near the Columbia River in Oregon, and I cannot go salmon fishing, which is really sad. But regardless of that, that's really it is an analogy, right? Because we want visuals to understand.
Yes.
where things are, right? Business sounds like strategy. Honestly, it took me till 30 years old to figure out what strategy meant. And I'm not kidding.
Yeah. Well, because we use these concepts and they turn into buzzwords and they turn into sound bites, and there's no feeling or explanation or emotion behind them.
That's right. Yeah, no, you've nailed it. And so that's so each in the captain strategy meant, that's a acronym, right? So each one of those C through N, right, represents a concept that has a nautical theme. So people can go, oh, I understand that. I don't understand strategy, right? But I understand a compass. The compass makes sense to me. So that's the C in our captain, right? And so each one of them have these terminology concepts that people can understand more. And then from that framework, and there's a second reason behind this too. You and I know this, Erin, especially considering your past of being like a power lifter and things, crazy things that you did. People are not good with goals.
And I have to tell you, I'll share this because it's you. That was shocking to right? Like, we all view the world through our own lens. And I never understood that. And the other thing that is in alignment here that I never understood, Allison, who's my assistant, I know you know her, most of the people in my world know her because she basically runs my life. We're both very much ducks in a row people, and just do what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it. And so it's weird to realize we're the weirdos.
It's goals, you go back to New Year's resolutions, right? It depends on what you read, but it's somewhere between 2% and 10% actually get done. Mm-hmm. And it's closer to the 2 than it is the 10, honestly. In strategic planning and execution, less than 10% of organizations get 2/3 of their strategic objectives done.
And what kills me, and that I had to learn because it really is coming from a non-judgmental place, it has nothing to do with how bad they want it.
No, this is not a desire thing. This is nothing to do with desire. There's nothing to do with hopes and dreams and aspirations. This has to do with designing things wrong.
Yeah. Which is actually good news, because that can be fixed.
That's correct. That's correct. I was super fortunate, Erin, to be trained by Fortune 500 executives. And I've been with 7 different companies of triple in size. And I thought it was normal. I thought oh, this is what you do. Of course, this is what you do, and I opened up the US office for Cascade Strategy, a strategic planning software company. And it was awesome. We grew from 50 clients to 350 clients 3 years, became 50% of the global business in 3 years. And by the way, the first 12 plus months of that was moonlighting. And I had a very full job before that had grown 7x. And so busy person, but this was just awesome because all day long it was about strategic planning and execution. That's what we did. We had a software that helped people manage it and loved it. The surprise was people were buying our software that they buy a Peloton bike. Okay. Yeah. So everyone knows what's Pelotons happen, right? During COVID, everybody, got to get in shape because I can't go outside. I'm going to get a Peloton bike. And what happens 3 months later or less? It becomes a very expensive towel rack.
Right. It's a coat rack. It's a
right. Exactly. Coat rack, towel rack. And it's and then you want to get rid of it because you don't want to remind yourself of all the money that you're paying and probably still paying the subscription because you didn't follow and get through with it.
And you feel like a failure. You feel worse.
Yes.
You feel worse than if you wouldn't have tried at all.
That's right. So I got into what I'm doing accidentally. I was trying to save our clients for not being another Peloton bike user. And so I started giving free consulting, and then we started charging a little bit of money for it. And I remember I was with a client down in Phoenix, and they were like, Carl, just for that last 2 hours, I would have paid you 10 grand for that. And I remember going, whoa, because I didn't say it out loud to him. I said it to, but I was like, I remember turning to the person I was with. I was like, I think I'm in the wrong business. And so now, just to fast forward, by the way, folks, I don't charge $10,000 for 2 hours. So that's not my current rates, just to clarify. But, if you want to pay, go ahead. But the key thing around this is I didn't understand the value that I learned on strategic planning execution, how valuable it was for, by the way, I know you do. I work with brilliant, smart, hardworking drivers. Okay. Yes. So this isn't a matter of intelligence. It's just, do you know anybody who has a strategic planning degree?
Right. No, that's not how that works. Well, and I say it similarly, like you go into business to do the thing the business does. And then when you become, solopreneur, entrepreneur, small team, but then when you become truly a business owner, completely different world, completely different skill set. This is not what I signed up for. And you're in massive reaction mode. I keep looking at your picture getting slammed by the sea, the lighthouse getting slammed by the sea, right? And who knows how to do that, right? That's not what most business owners don't know how to grow a business. Not what they know how to do.
They don't. And exactly, I never come into an organization and ever claim to know more about their business.
No.
Right. It's about working on the business. It's about working on their concepts. It's about learning how to scale. It's about accelerating it. Like, I don't know about you, Erin, but I hire tons of coaches and executives and true experts on something that I don't know,
right,
to accelerate my process to it. I could figure it out on my own. But I'm not the best DIY guy, honestly. Right.
I suck at DIY because I have no patience.
Right. Well,
And why
exactly. It's like,
why would I work so hard to do a bad job at it?
well, why do I want to go to Home Depot 7 times?
Right.
So why do I want to keep on going to Home Depot? And I love Home Depot, but I don't want to continue to return to it. So if I hire somebody who knows what they're doing, they literally, and the data is really clear on this, you triple your speed towards success. And by the way, that's just one of many numbers which validates this. And so that's what I try to do with our clients is we, instead of having these small 5% goals that are going to take us 3 years to get you, no, we're going to grow 30% every year or whatever, depending on the size of the organization, of course,
right.
Or we're going to double or triple. We're going to create these things because it comes down to what people are missing. This has nothing to do with discipline. This has nothing to do with, once again, how hard you work. It has to do with changing your habits. Okay.
Right.
Once you change your habits, then you could then take it to the next level. But it's super hard to do because you're caught in your day-to-day, you're serving your clients, you're trying to drum up your business. It's when you change your habits, that's when you have extraordinary change. And that's what we help teach.
Well, and also I file this whole concept under give yourself a break, but don't let yourself off the hook. Yeah. Habits are hard to change. We're up against neuroscience here. Like, this is not, I must not want it enough. I'm not a hard worker enough. Like, I must suck. Like, this is not the way we beat ourselves up when we don't change our habits. You're up against patterns in your brain, like actual triggers and neuroscience. Don't let yourself off the hook. It doesn't mean it can't be changed. But yes.
But there's a reason why you keep on going back to Instagram and going back to Netflix and going back to these other things, because you don't even know that you become addicted because it's kind of habit.
Right.
And so it's that the same exact trend is exactly what happens in our business. We keep on going to market the same way. We keep on talking to our customers the same way. We keep on forgetting to ask them, do they need more? We keep on forgetting these basic habits. And when we learn to change those habits and we hold ourselves accountable, not to the outcomes, by the way, but to the leading indicators, the actual effort to make an impact in the outcome, that's when it changes things significantly.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely love it because I'm a big fan of activity goals over outcome goals, especially when you're first changing your habits, when you're first doing things, because you don't yet know what work goes into creating that outcome. So how could you have an outcome goal? You don't actually physically feel and know how to get there. And yet, once again, it's a situation where you set yourself up to feel worse than if you have never even tried.
So I'll give a small little example. So I was trying to attempt to run my second marathon, and my feet went numb in the middle of a half marathon. So I was like, okay, that's a problem. And
Great.
So let's fast forward and just skip that for a moment. But so I had to change a habit of like cardiovascular, and so I'm like, okay, what can I do that is I could still do things? I'm like, well, I guess I could swim. And I was like, oh well, I could swim, but not really. I don't know how to swim for exercise. And so what did I do? I actually took lessons as a 49-year-old person.
Nice.
Right. I took lessons, and it was a little bit embarrassing because I was down with the kid with it's individual lessons, right? Okay. And I didn't have the flap wings on it. I mean, I knew how to do basic swimming, but I didn't know how to
Right. You
swim
know
for
how to say you
exercise.
weren't drowning, but there's a difference.
Right. But so I learned how to do the basics. Once again, took a coach. Didn't cost much at all, by the way. And then now I've got this habit where if I set aside my bag in the middle of the day, like I did today, I get up, I don't even think about it. Before I even know it, I'm swimming laps. And now I got this great exercise program that is taking off the strain. I'm getting cardiovascular type event in it. But this is something that you told me a year ago I'm going to swim. I could say, you are crazy. You're crazy, right? Now, granted, there was an event that forced me to change my habits, right? Meaning my feet all of a sudden got numb. But I did. I changed it. And these are examples of what we have to do.
Well, the other thing you're describing that I think messes people up, why more people aren't able to do this. There's a whole hell of a lot of intention in your world.
Yes.
Live it in that, again, it really is a habit to choose over and over and over and over again to live by intention instead of reaction.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, that's and that's interesting. That's the whole lost at CEO terminology. Once again, it's not like we're not talking with extraordinary leaders of businesses, right? But they get caught in the habits, they got caught in their business, and then they lose momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So they stop moving forward in the direction they want. And then what happens is then they start throwing unintentional, I need help, start throwing resources around the wrong places. And next thing you know, their ship's wrecked. And so you need to have that bigger intention of, this is a philosophy, a mindset that I'm like, for us, we have a 10-year, not a 1-year goal, not a 2-year. We have those too, but we have a 10-year vision to positively impact a million people in 10,000 organizations over the next decade. We have a goal of giving at least $1 million to charity, and we're well on our way of doing it by giving the first 10% of net revenues to charity. That's what gets me out of bed each day. So
I was going to say, with intention, and that's the piece I think that a lot of people miss or don't utilize on their own behalf enough, that purpose-driven fixes intention so easily. So easily.
No, I agree with you, Erin. It's having, once again, having these intentions helps you to change your habits along the way to continue to reach your mission, right? Reach where you're trying to get towards. And when this is one of the challenges, right, that publicly traded companies have, is they're so focused on the quarterly goals, right?
100%. Yep.
That they forget sometimes the big picture of why they exist.
They have no choice. They're not just focused on it, they're judged by it. They're judged by short-term plans. And yet everyone who knows money, economy, business strategy, short-term plans become irrelevant in terms of big goals, because short-term plans, right, we're constantly maneuvering and iterating the short term in order to reach the long term. If you get rid of the long term, you're screwed.
Yeah, Erin, there's very few companies that will stick with their principles in the face of quarterly challenges. And Costco is like one of those examples of one of them, right? They still have the $5 rotisserie chicken, whatever it is, right? Worth $1. I'm not a big shopper, so I had to, but they still have these basics, like principles. They want to make sure that their cashiers are the highest paid in the industry. They get pressure all the time from the street to change that. And they're like, no, we're going to have happy employees that are going to be consistent. And then they realize, guess what? People stay longer. They don't have to train them as much. They have all these other savings and benefits as a result of it. And they want to make sure they provide a living wage for their employees. These are the principles, right, that they've established for themselves. And so they're willing to take heat in the short run, but their long-term returns far outbeat the majority of their competitors.
And I want to take a step back for the listeners and for you and I to understand something here, because what's really interesting about this conversation is I talk about working with people to create multiple seven-figure businesses. You talk about working with companies to create those $40 million businesses, right? Do you understand that our conversation has not been about money, and our conversation has not been around tactics? And right? We're not talking about just do this one insta tactic. That's how you do that. Our conversation has been around what does the CEO, but truthfully, each individual have to do to make the best version of themselves.
If these yes, I mean, exclamation point right on what you said there, because it is more than that. It has to have a bigger purpose and a bigger concept around it, right? And that's what drives us. It drives the organizations to do it. It enables us to change, once again, the way we're doing. But what you're implying there is, I think, something really important is that you can, just to clarify, I have, like you do, a Rolodex of extraordinary businesses and humans that I bring in where I don't have the expertise on. And I have them solve tactical solutions to a specific strategy that was designed that's going to work best for that business. Right. But for me to go in and assume that I'm going to bring in ABC company to help is silly, because you can have two companies right next to each other, the exact same business, start at the exact same time, and have a completely different strategy to success.
Absolutely. Love what you're learning here and interested in more? Check out conqueryourbusiness.com to get immediate access to all sorts of additional resources and stay updated on our upcoming training events. It's my rallying cry lately, my soapbox against these insta tactics. There is no such thing as just do this one thing.
Once again, that's why we like to say well, it goes back to the core of this. The term we hear often, right? Unless you're shooting vampire, there's no silver bullet, right?
Right. There's no silver.
Now there may be one of your things or two of your things that work really, really well. But generally, it's a combination of factors that you have to change in your people, process, and systems to execute that new strategy to get it done. And then you also have to learn from it, right? Because so, Erin, I can just go, okay, I'm sure some of your audience has watched the movie Saving Private Ryan, right? And Saving Private Ryan, right, is the wonderful story of where three of the Ryan brothers were killed in action, and there was one more brother, and Tom Hanks plays a story, right, where they try to Saving Private Ryan. And one of the most intense scenes is when they get onto D-Day in Omaha Beach, and they're trying to get through, and it's horrific. It's just absolutely horrific. Well, what you miss is in the planning of D-Day, it was a 6 to 9 month or a year process. Matter of fact, what's holding up here, there's two books, D-Day. I'm going to show you. This is going to be awesome for those who are
literally holding up your microphone.
Literally holding my microphone. Okay,
yeah.
This is D-Day. Okay, this is literally all the planning and the one day of D-Day. And Citizen Soldiers, these are written by Stephen Ambrose. Great books, by the way. Stephen Ambrose, this is D-Day +1 through to get to Hitler. Okay, actually conquer Germany. So you have these two books, and what's fascinating with D-Day is all this planning was done, and on D-Day +1, they had no idea there was something called hedgerows. Now, people are going to have to look this up, and I don't have a visual to show right now to go through this, but hedgerows is basically overgrown trees, narrow roads, and natural fortified defensive positions that our Sherman tanks could not ride over. Mm. So we expected to get to Cherbourg, which was the next tactical objective, in like 2 days. And it took us like 2 to 3 weeks because we had to completely change our tactics to get to our objective, because the real life scenario that our planning wasn't true. We didn't know something that we had been swatching for years. Right. Had no idea it existed. And so that happens, right? Hedgerows.
It's happening right now in the economy.
Yes.
It's happening right now as you're watching things change so fast. Nobody saw AI doing what it's doing.
That's right. Yeah. Massive game changer. Great example, right? Where please, by the way, for those in the audience, do not and I could say this, do not understate the impact of generative AI is going to have.
Right.
I mean, some of the smartest people I've talked with who are part of designing software on top of this. Matter of fact, we're spinning off a company right now to take advantage of what it can do. And it's extraordinary. You cannot underestimate the power of this. And so just a little small thing. Yes, this is going to be transformational, even if you don't experience it today. The best analogy I heard in this, by the way, is there was a while back where having a server farm was a strategic advantage.
Right.
Right. And then AWS came along and said, oh, we can sell this. And all of a sudden, you and I could start a company without having server management.
Yep.
And we can compete with the biggest companies in the world. AWS has taken that to 100x level, where now all of a sudden we can relatively easily use this incredible data set to a local level, to our own, anybody out of their own proverbial garage can now all of a sudden do technology achievements that accelerates by 3x, 10x, 100x. So don't underestimate that. It's now, I'm not sure if we're going to be at Terminator 2. That's the question I think everyone has. And I'm not sure if it's going to take all our jobs right away, but there's certain fields
There's
that's going to see some serious change, or people are going to have to go back to thinking on it. But we should not feel bad for them. See, we forget there have been your area, right, in the Rust Belt, right, in Chicago, okay, and the areas around it. They for 100 years have had offshoring taking place in manufacturing and automation. So now it's our turn, if you're a knowledge worker. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Time for you to adapt.
This happened in industry a long time ago.
That's right.
This happened in industry a long time ago. Random questions. How did you get into you gave a little bit of a backstory on you were doing this and what drives you in using your knowledge and ability in this way?
I am one of those really fortunate people that found out exactly what I should be doing.
Oh, I hear you. Took me long. I think I was in my late 40s by the time I really got it dialed in.
Well, I mentioned earlier, when I was literally 30 years old, I didn't know what strategy meant. So if you would have told me back at 30 years old that I'm going to be running a strategic planning and execution consulting company, I would have laughed. Because I used to get irritated when my CEO at that time, who was a wonderful man, Jerry Romain from Lightspeed Technologies, loved the man. He would say, let's talk strategy. I'm like, what do you mean? So just background, I started out in finance and accounting. Okay. So I started out with PricewaterhouseCoopers. It was back in a name called Coopers and Lybrand, earned a CPA. I was a numbers guy, right? I became a CFO by the age of 30. I was about numbers and getting things done. And that's what I knew. And I was with a bunch of private companies, with a publicly traded company. But then I learned these concepts once again about strategy. And I allowed myself to go away from my core. I thought I was supposed to just actually, Erin, I had built up a tax business on the side because I wanted to teach history in high school and coach high school football. Okay. So that I thought was going to be my future. And what's super cool about what happened is I said, okay. And then they started giving me new things. Why don't you take over IT? Well, I don't know how to fix computers, but we fixed it. And they were like, can you take over technical support? And I was like, okay. I didn't know anything about technical support and got an opportunity and helped fix it. And then the next opportunity was like, well, can you set up a distribution center in Europe? I'm like, okay. And so next thing I know, I'm in Maastricht, Netherlands, and in Amsterdam, and I'm in Reading, England, and we're setting up distribution centers. And after that, it was like, can you now take over manufacturing operations? Because that's gone pretty well. And so I've been fortunate to say yes along the way.
I was going to say the thing that you did over and over and over again, and this is where I watch people get stuck and stop. You said yes, and you trusted you would figure it out.
That's right. That's right. And as I mentioned, I did not know any of those things. I didn't know how to set up a second company with, which grew 7x. I didn't know what a woofie was, which is a wholly foreign entity in China. I didn't know I had to negotiate with a
You
Chinese
didn't know you
national
needed
on.
bribery as a line item in the budget to do real estate transactions in many countries.
We did not conduct in that. Let's clarify in the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. But things are different in different places.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing that we can't talk about in this podcast of things that I learned over there. Funny stories, actually.
You need a local representative.
Funny stories,
I know how to do that.
like funny stories that I can't go into. Please, if you want to talk about them, reach out. But
In
we
person,
can't
no
talk about this
recording
podcast.
devices, right?
Yes, we cannot talk about those here. But yeah, there are just things, but yeah, you have to be willing to say yes and to try to learn new things. And
So
what's really fun is, go ahead.
where does the lack of fear come from? Because I have that also. And I'm going back to this thing where I didn't realize I was the weirdo. I don't get scared of things I don't know. I'm fully happy not knowing how to do things, either knowing that I will A, figure it out, or B, find someone who does. I don't retreat from not knowing. I didn't know that was weird.
Yeah, it's a little hard for me to say exactly for sure. I mean, I do have fear. I could say I without fear is probably not. I would call myself a calculated risk taker.
Okay.
So I look at,
no.
yeah. I'm definitely not one of these people just going to jump. Like every single one of these scenarios, I still evaluate and go, okay, I think I could try that. I think I could try that. I think I'd try something new. But I did not go into any one of those situations thinking I was going to fail.
Yes, I think that's a huge difference. And the difference isn't because you weren't scared, it was because you knew you were going to do whatever it took to succeed.
That's right.
Which also goes back to intention, because this is the difference between, do you think that you are at cause, or do you think you have no influence? Yeah. Are things happening because of you, or are they happening to you?
Yeah. And oh, that's extreme ownership behind me, right? The book, that's saying with Leif Babb and Jocko Willink. I mean, that's a great example of, and this is hard. And I do not want to say I have perfection on this at all, but, how do I say this? A lot of stuff we're listening to and reading on TV and getting on our respective social feeds from our phone and different things are meaningless to you.
Right.
They really are. They really have nothing to do with you. And when we get caught up in stuff, from elections to social reform to you name it,
in Hollywood, all of it.
Yeah. What it doesn't impact your most, unless you're in that business. Let me clarify. I mean, there are a few listeners like they're in that. Hey, great. Okay. If that's what you do, that's what you do. But for the vast majority of us, what's happening in DC is not impacting our day-to-day life. What's happening, with the weather isn't impacting our life unless you're in farming, right? There's a lot of things that it's really irrelevant. And so part of this is a lot of our fear comes from reading things that freak us out.
Well, and a false sense of prioritization due to immersion, right?
Yeah, it's so I try to very actively get rid of things that are I try to, as much as I can, shut out the world and focus on, once again, the things I can control, because I have one vote in the election in a representative government. We're not a democracy. Just in case if we're those are listening to the United States listening to this, okay, just a little fact here. We're not a democracy. We're a republic. Okay. And so that's your control. Now once again, you could go and run for office and be really influential and be one of those 535 people, right, that have a significant impact, right, in the United States. Or being I'm not saying you can't have opportunities, but for most of us, it's irrelevant.
Effect.
Yeah, it's irrelevant. And yes, tax rates change, and yes, certain things change, and But when it comes to your business or even your personal life, it rarely actually has real impact. And so what I'm saying, I'm not saying not being lying in a cave and not being aware, not listening, but what is important is to filter out the noise.
Well, and it is, and as I'm listening to this, I totally agree with you. And I also absolutely recognize the luxury that I have, that I'm not one of the groups of people affected by, right? There are people who are very directly affected by the changes and the rules and the chaos.
Sure.
But again, as business owners, your business is not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, there were some things like we all experienced COVID, right? And that changed a lot of habits and things that changed. And those were real. I mean, I don't want to downplay those things, but I'll also say this. I was traveling in May of 2020 on airplanes and flying around and going and from that point forward, I just wasn't posting it.
Well, and it's all about, yeah, I mean, and what it is, I guess, is your chosen response to it, right? What is it? It's not whether or not something is or isn't happening. It's what is your personal chosen response to it, filtering out what is throwing you off your game, paying attention to what you need. I just keep going back to intention. I just keep going back to what is, be intentional about all of it.
Yeah, and Erin, that's why we start out in the very beginning. The captain, once again, is that compass, right? You have to have a compass, right? Of what that future looks like for you. And the data is really clear when you set a vision and envision future. I'm not talking about a vision statement, just to clarify. I'm talking about what it's going to really feel and look like in your relationships and the people you work with and what locations you're going to be in, et cetera, et cetera. When you define that vision, then all of a sudden your subliminal mind and your real mind starts taking over and you start doing things to go towards that. And that becomes your intention once again. Yeah. And then becomes an alignment. Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Here's the problem. We could keep going and going and going and going.
But we got time limitations.
So I know you have your book out. You have amazing, amazing things that you want to make available to the audience here. Why don't you give us some of that information? Tell people how to continue this conversation with you, how you can help them, how they can do all the things with you.
So big picture, our main website is 40strategy.com. So if you want to learn more about what we're doing, we have a podcast as well called the Measures Podcast. I encourage listeners to, after they listen to yours, of course, is to come on and pop onto ours. And so that's a fun one. Third thing this is an invitation to everyone who's on the podcast. We have a gift. So if you send me an email, and I don't give out, well, now it's out. Carl J. Cox, okay, Carl, CARLJ, COX at 40strategy.com. I'm not the famous DJ, carlcox.com. That's a side note. Okay. From England. But Carl J. Cox, send me an email and I will send you a signed book, just with the shipping cost. Okay. And so send me that. I'll be happy to pass it along to you. Secondly, any of your listeners, if they're interested in moving forward to learn more about our process, we've got some really cool programs that's starting out in August. And what you can do with that is a $140 gift card.
Nice.
For every single one of your audience members. Okay. So they can use that and apply it to any one of the programs that we have.
All these links are in the show notes. So it'd make it super simple for everybody to just grab all this. This is awesome.
Perfect. So there we go. That's the key stuff we'd love to give. And yeah, we love to have a conversation. We could set up a time and get towards it. But we have some really neat things that we're doing to not only be available individually, but in group type levels that enables entrepreneurs to get the level of service that larger companies have that the smaller companies need as well.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, for your story, for your energy, for your information, for all the things. I love talking with you. And so thanks for joining me.
Erin, thank you. And if I can add one more thing.
Yes.
Real quickly. So we're doing a in the month of, this is going to continue, but we give the 10% of all of our stuff to net revenues. And so anybody who buys the book, we're going to give $2 basically for every single book that goes out towards specifically. We have a push-up challenge that we're doing, and that is we're gonna find this here, and this is
Can we
gonna be the
get
worst
videos
part.
of you doing your push-ups?
Well, it's that, so St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. Yeah, so there's a 3,000 push-up challenge, and I'm going to do 10. I'm doing 10,000 this month, and the purpose once again is to raise money for this particular, for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital for cancer, and so we're donating our proceeds for this, our net proceeds, towards that research. So if you go and buy our book, Lost Its CEO, or buy any of our services for the month of May, and we also provide to other charitable organizations. I just want to get that out because it means so much to us. Is once again, this is what gets me out of bed each day and be willing to do 500 push-ups a day. It's to give to the kids. And I really mean that. It's my passion and it's my desire. So thank you, Erin, for just adding that on.